This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Pool Party. We've got ourselves a 2v2, that is right. And in the top left corner, as the Cyan Empire, this is TNG Xouth. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Of course, I do not know for sure. Crazy Germans and their crazy names. But in the bottom left side, as of course, the wild Danish man, you may know and love him. He is red. He's allies from teammates. It's WalftheWolf. And in the top right position as the blue allies, the famous Cryo Master, it is Maniek. And in the bottom right side, from teammates as well, the green allies, Goldy, aka Golden Eye. I believe he goes by Goldy most of the time now, but a pretty good matchup. Of course, we've got in the corners red and blue, two definite experts and two players who have proved themselves on many occasions. And then over here we've got Xouth, and down here we've got Goldy. And Goldy I know is a solid player. Xouth, I don't know that I've ever seen one of his games. Alright, so not a good start for Xouth, unfortunately, but once you deploy, it's like, what are you gonna do, sell it off? At best, you'll have the cash later to sell it off and rebuild it, but that is rough for Xouth. WalftheWolf is like, oh my, I don't know what we're going to be doing in this game, but this should be a pretty fun 2v2. Pool Party is a pretty great map and has led to a lot of really awesome games throughout the years. Excuse me, as we do have every one of these players, with the exception of Maniek, going to be grabbing themselves an oil derrick. Maniek a little bit slow there. WalftheWolf going to be camping out with that dog, hoping to get himself a fairly lucky kill. Goldy going for the scout pretty much all around as well, and Maniek going to be camping the water third, forcing WalftheWolf, if he wants to go for that third, to clean up the dog, and then that kind of alerts Maniek, hey, this might be a harassable location at some point. Maybe some cryocopters, maybe some Vindicators in the future. Riptide's coming on out, and of course Riptide's infantry are quite common in 2v2, so Riptides are a good choice, and a player like Maniek has some excellent control. I don't know if he's been playing lately, or if he was playing recently when this game was played. I'm not exactly sure when it was played, so he may be a little bit rusty. We may not be seeing the Maniek that we know and love, but hopefully we do indeed see some pretty awesome gameplay. And Riptide's going to be coming in for Goldy. He may have just lost one. I'm not sure. I thought I saw another green dot over here. Could have been a dog as well. In the north, we've got Peacekeepers from Maniek. These are just here to buy time. Really, he sees the MCV coming. He's like, all right, what are you doing? Is WalftheWolf queuing a turret? What exactly is going on? But at any rate, Tengu going to be getting directly on top of that multi-gunner turret. Of course, with that honorable discharge, you do get the opportunity to deal a bit of splash damage to your opponents. Looks like one Riptide ended up getting cleaned up there, and this Riptide for Maniek is going to be forced to pull back. This attacking force is actually kind of scary in that it just cut through almost everything. Maniek did drop down a multi-gunner turret. That did not really stop anything. This barracks is only to buy time. He's probably messaging Goldy right now saying, hey man, you got to do something. Goldy's like, hey, I'll just camp at WalftheWolf's airfield. You go for the harass on the expansion. And at the same time, Xouth, he's a crippling Maniek a little bit here in the future. He hasn't quite crippled him just yet, but once he starts harassing the economy, then he may start to cripple him. And at the same time, WalftheWolf, he's taking some pressure as well. Of course, with those Apollos, he was forced to get out Javelin Troopers. If they get one Vindicator, which they did not, so never mind. But in the north, we do indeed have more multi-gunner turrets going to be going down. WalftheWolf deciding not to help out his ally, although it looks like the MCV has moved away for now at least. Two multi-gunner turrets, one from Goldy, one from Maniek, popping on out. And the MCV does pull back. We should be seeing a third expansion at some point from Xouth, as third expansions in team games are pretty darn common. Are we actually going to be seeing the MCV move for the oil derrick, or is this going to be a turret push sort of MCV move? Of course, with two allied players on the map, nice bomb splitting from Goldy, getting a couple of extra Peacekeepers here and there. There's the transform. Goldy has a lot of Peacekeepers. Unfortunately, he's not paying attention. We'll end up losing quite a few of them. 3, 4, 5, even 6 of them have gone down, as I'm not sure what the body count is just yet. Xouth getting a nice cleanup crew there, and Goldy, he's had his third expansion and this oil derrick for a little while. Barracks might be queued up for WalftheWolf, and of course, as dual allied, you can move one MCV and then have the other player queuing up an additional MCV. There's going to be a couple of Apollos just to harass these Tengus and allow the Vindicator to clean up one of the Tengus, but Javelin Troopers and Peacekeepers going to be moving on in. Of course, they're going for that back right wall segment. They don't want to clear up the wall segments near the Harvester to allow it to escape on out and go for the crushes and shotguns. Firing away. Goldy going to be splitting relatively well, going to be taking out a couple of those Javelin Troopers, and Apollo's going to be swinging around the left side of the map, heading back for Maniac. They've done their job down south. More Vindicators going to be coming in for Maniac. We'll have to see if he gets the splash damage that he wants. He's going to be going for the Javelin Troopers, which really he doesn't have to because Goldy does have the Peacekeeper IFV going on there. Peacekeeper multi-gunner turret, rather. Again, bomb splitting could have gone over to these Peacekeepers down here instead of the one that was basically getting crushed by that Prospector. A little bit unfortunate there for Maniac that he went for the wrong unit there. WalftheWolf under constant harassment all game long. And look at this, Maniac going to be pulling in here with a Riptide, cleans up a Harvester. Going to be going for the Refinery as well, just to be super annoying. And there's going to be Tier 2 point defense drones. Maniac leaving a couple of Apollos, not exactly good for his efficiency ratios, as you don't want to be throwing away units for no reason. There's going to be the third refinery, but really, it's like the 2.5 refinery for Xouth, unfortunately for him. Vindicator does go down. Goldy is going to be losing a couple of those. Now, Goldy has been doing all right throughout this game. He's got his third refinery established for quite a while, and actually this Riptide is fully heroic. Can go ahead and clean up an extra Harvester. The IFVs are going to be rocking up. A couple of them do indeed have some damage taken away, and the IFVs do chase away that Riptide. WalftheWolf will not be able to clean that up. One Apollo does go down for WalftheWolf, and Goldy gets himself a slight rank up there. These two teams relatively even. I mean, Maniac hasn't taken a crazy amount of damage, but WalftheWolf is certainly still in the game, even if he's not in the position he would like to be in. He doesn't have that third expansion rocking like he would want. The commands hub is going up on that third base location, and he's taken some harassment in the main base, which is very unfortunate for him, but he's rocking the third base down here. Those aren't just units, as sometimes it's hard to tell on the minimap. There's going to be the cryo shot firing off. Fortunately for WalftheWolf, Goldy has got an additional turret set up there, and Maniac has a second turret also. So Xouth, he's going to have to put the pressure on Maniac, going for the power plant, which actually would be pretty sick. There's a second power plant out on the water, which means taking out this one may not be enough, but shutting down those power plants would be a seriously great way to lock down these turrets. Oh! That MCV actually just got wrecked. WalftheWolf suddenly is in a pretty bad position. As long as he can hold on to this third refinery, he's not in the worst position, but he doesn't have an MCV, which of course denies any sort of Tier 2, or even later in the game, Tier 3, and of course limits your expansion possibilities. He should have a War Factory. At least he had a War Factory earlier in this game. I don't know that he still has the War Factory, so he may not even be able to rebuild. We'll have to see if he actually threw down a Naval Yard, as I don't think he had one of those either. And Maniac just going pretty well with his forces. Now he is going to be starting to take a little bit more direct damage from these forces as they start to work away on these refineries. Xouth kind of left to carry the team on the left side, although if WalftheWolf ended up getting out some nice production facilities, he may be able to do a lot of damage, or if he's able to produce an extra command hub, which he will be able to, not that one, but from somewhere over here, produce an extra command hub, and then get a nice tech up on his airfield, get out some cryocopters. He won't be in the worst position, and he will not be useless throughout this game, but until he gets up to that Tier 2, he can only build the Apollos and the Vindicators, which have pretty limited functionality in a lot of these battles, where Vindicators have to go back and reload a lot of the time, and Apollos, you have to wait for air targets to show up. WalftheWolf going to be just focusing on defense, which, hey, when it's like 3 or 4 Peacekeepers, you can defend with just a couple of Vindicators just fine. Maniac, of course, setting up that third refinery, should be moving on to number 4, although he has lost both of the ones in the main relatively soon here, which means he's going to be going down to that 1 base eco. Very bad for Maniac, also getting cleaned up without actually killing off the power plant. That would be super great if he could, but the Vindicators come in, they get the break of that building, it falls apart, and of course the splash damage kills those Peacekeepers. Tsunami tanks, they are not going to be held back by the water. They'll just roll on in here, going to be cleaning up this airfield without any trouble at all, and suddenly Maniac is not in a very good position. He does still have his MCV, he does still have Tier 2, which means he can go ahead and get cryocopters out if he can afford it, but after losing 3 refineries, you really think an allied player can actually afford cryocopters? Most likely not. He's going to have quite a bit of a bank saved up to even get out one cryocopter. And, of course, 2 cryocopters is most likely just out of the question unless he wasn't macroing very well, which is definitely a possibility, but you don't want to be banking on that. 2 Vindicators need a spot to land. It looks like they've already got a spot to land. He may actually have to just end up cycling out airfields, or cycling out aircraft if he's got more than 4 because he lost the other airfield. 1 multi-gunner turret does go down. That Guardian tank getting some nice shots off. Of course, in this case, you can't micro all too well. I mean, there's not a whole lot else you can do with that Guardian tank. There's the cryocopter from Goldy going to be coming in here, shrinking down one of the tsunami tanks. Can go ahead and start freezing these guys down just to make them a little bit more efficient and just to remove a couple of these units from the battle. And there's going to be the Assault Destroyer. However, IFV's coming in for WalftheWolf. Will he be able to actually do any real damage with them killing off that? Actually, oh shoot, that's one IFV going down. Killing off the armor facility, definitely very nice, but Xouth needs to make sure that he controls relatively well. There come the Vindicators to go ahead and clean up the Assault Destroyer, and actually the Javelin Troopers, or rather the IFVs, not the Javelin Troopers, coming in here, and surprisingly, team left side able to break Maniek in pretty much every way. The MCV is somewhere on this map, as it's still in the middle here. He does still have a power plant up north, but of course, just a few peacekeepers scattered around the map, and unfortunately for Allied Maniek, these are Empire units. Water does not phase them, and actually if Xouth ends up getting in front of the MCV, he can mess up the pathing there and just get a lock. A great move there by Xouth, just going to be surrounding that MCV, locking it down. There's going to be the Cryoblast going to be firing off. It may end up locking down that MCV. There's the sell-off. The Engineer gets eliminated pretty much immediately. And Maniek is locked out of this game harder than WalftheWolf. I think he's got literally a Javelin Trooper and a Peacekeeper, which actually this MCV may need to pack up, or whatever's going to be coming out here is going to have to crush that Javelin Trooper relatively quickly there. There's a Refiner actually coming out. Oh, that's an expensive investment. Got to keep that Javelin Trooper on the move. Maniek going to be earning his keep in this game. I keep calling players as being basically dead. He does get the deploy there, and Xouth may be forced to end up selling. He can't really do anything. He may end up having to just lose it there, as Maniek just pulling this Javelin Trooper, a little bit of stutter step here and there. He's got the repair going on. Can he jump inside of the building and actually get the finishing kill on this? Oh, he does get the kill. A nice move there by Maniek, going to be just barely getting the kill on that refinery. Definitely an awesome 2v2 that we're seeing. Some nice comeback material here from WalftheWolf, who was almost down and out for the count. He's got the tier 2, it looks like, on that command hub. Could even be working towards tier 3 eventually, but that does mean that this airfield is the utility of this airfield is increased by a huge amount. It's suddenly not almost useless. If he goes for tier 3, I would be very surprised, because really sentry bombers is what you're going to be going for. Nah, just stick with cryocopters and just build a lot of cryocopters. The other thing that you can do in this situation is build a lot of command hubs, because you sell them off, you get a Peacekeeper, at least if you sell them off on land. If you sell them off out on water, Peacekeeper just drowns and you never get to see it. And unfortunately, unfortunately for Xouth, Maniek has found a way to be just so annoying. You gotta hand it to Maniek. I mean, he's got 1 power plant left in the game. He's basically not doing anything. And yet he's still in here doing what he can with that Peacekeeper being as annoying as possible. We'll end up getting cleaned up there by that Imperial Warrior. Goldy, he's been allowed to just sort of sit back, macro up. He hasn't quite taken a 4th refinery from what I can tell, but he is sitting on those 3, and he rushes in here. However, there are indeed a ridiculous amount of cryocopters, because when you've got 2 base plus, well, 2 refineries plus an oil derrick, now we're talking about a reasonable amount of money that you can pour pretty much purely into cryocopters. What else are you really going to be building? You can go for Peacekeepers in that kind of convoluted method that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and we could actually see a couple of these hydrofoils move in to try to get that weapon jamming ability. But on the right side, we do have Xouth going to be moving in. Goldy, what can he actually do? He may end up getting wrecked here a little bit by Xouth, and Xouth, I wasn't exactly sure how good of a player he was at the beginning of this, but we can certainly see that he's holding his own, and with this many cryocopters, the just freezing ability is absolutely crazy. Somehow, someway, team left side seems to be making a comeback. Goldy is not out of this yet, but as the Empire player does indeed press further and further forward, trashing every bit of the main base of Goldy, the future is looking dim. I think is the best way to put it. There is indeed going to be the airfield crashing down. These cryocopters will, of course, never actually crash as long as they get those repairs. The Apollo fighters, the Vindicators that may be left on the map, they've got until their ammo runs out. Unfortunately, they're not Tengus, but nice snipe there by Xouth, of course, going to be transforming and A, moving very well, or at least letting his Tengu's auto-attack, no matter which one it was. Either one, it worked out great. Those Vindicators got trashed, just absolutely slammed. And a couple more refineries would not hurt Xouth in the least. But some nice micro from Goldy could be the saving grace of him. We'll have to see if the micro is incredible or if it's just sort of standard. Of course, when you've got the hydrofoils, you have to kind of make the choice of how many do I have on weapon jamming, how many do I have on anti-air, and then it's up to you to individually focus down a lot of units. But if all of the units leave the water, there's not a whole lot Goldy can do about that. And at this point, Goldy is in a very rough position, as he has been for the last couple of minutes. Basically, ever since losing Maniek in this game, he has been in a very bad position. Once Maniek just got technically not eliminated, but basically since Maniek went down to that one power plant, he has not been in a good position. Team right side, not doing too well. Xouth, on the other hand, just needs to mass expand. As you see, he's sending out an additional refinery. Should go ahead and make sure that he's locking down pretty much all of these expansions out on the map. I mean, Goldy, he's kind of confined right now. Xouth is the power player in this matchup. And WalftheWolf, he's not out of the game just yet. He does have, I think this is the furthest thing north for him, so it would be very wise of Xouth to go ahead and defend that power plant, because the cryocopters and Wolf's micro is going to be absolutely great. He did get two prospectors out, which means he can deploy them into command hubs. Kind of interesting that he decided to deploy them there. Of course, he's hoping to sell these off, get a couple more peacekeepers. Jumps inside of the building, will allow him to do a little bit more damage. There's one shrink. 3 and 4 shrinks. Unfortunately for him, he is going to be having to face a lot of these units. He's trying to freeze them down, and this one peacekeeper is actually going to be cleaning up a couple of these units here, and 3 cryocopters have been eliminated. The fourth one is getting focused down relatively quickly here, but these IFVs, it's going to be a race of the final few moments. The IFVs lose, and suddenly Goldy's strong, relatively strong attack force is no more. Tsunami tanks need to be in a little bit higher numbers to make sure that they just absolutely smash through this. And at this point, we may end up seeing some Shogun battleships. There's the Tier 3, an additional Mecha Bay, the Decimator Core, the Psionic Decimator is going to be coming out for Xouth. He's like, hey man, we can play this short, we can play this long, easy way or the hard way, your choice, Goldy. You're the last one left in this game. And, you know, if we play out the long game, Psionic Decimator will trash you. If we play it out the short game, well, WalftheWolf may be getting forced nearly out of this match, as we do have the Cryogeddon coming on down, and of course he will still have the command hubs, but Goldy does know that those refineries are important, even though there's technically no production facilities for WalftheWolf. And of course, if he can eliminate this power plant, that would be fantastic for Goldy, but unfortunately Goldy will be losing that Riptide. And at this point, everything is over but the Cry, and I guess eventually this power plant will have to get cleaned up, but I don't know if Xouth or WalftheWolf actually registers that power plant as still being there. Xouth, on the other hand, he is going crazy with production. I'm sure his macro is just going out of control right now. He is, of course, not going to be banking a huge amount of money because he's super pro. I'm sure if we switched over to his vision, he'd be banking like 20K or something. Maybe not that much, but once you start to get up to like the 6-7 refinery count, could even go ahead and sell off this one to replace it just to be a little bit more efficient. But I mean, when you're getting up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Is that actually 9 refineries? You might actually be banking 20K. It's hard to spend that much money, which is why he's, of course, going like double Mecha Bay, triple Naval Yard, and he's just going to mass out an insane amount of units. Yari Mini-Sub cleaning up the power plant in the north. It's good that that's not going to be the last structure standing, but Goldy, he's sitting on that 2 refinery economy, which, I don't know, you know, I'm not exactly in tune with how many refineries are needed for each faction, relatively speaking, but I kind of think that 10 refinery empire, as it's soon going to be, is better than 2 refinery allies. Just a little bit of a heads up there. That's just personally my opinion. I think allies are good, but they're not that good. WalftheWolf leaving the game. He's like, hey man, you got this. There's the sell-off from Goldy. The fire sale has commenced. And there's the fire sale finishing. Probably typing GG in the chat. And Xouth, carrying team left side to victory. Definitely an awesome 2v2, a lot of fun action, not super insane, crazy micro, and unfortunately we didn't get to see Maniek just go crazy with cryocopters and lock down 1,000,000 units at a time, as that is super fun to watch. Unfortunately, we didn't get quite to see that this game. However, we are going to be jumping into some more Red Alert 3 action relatively soon. Thank you all very much for watching. Congratulations to WalftheWolf and Xouth for playing some fantastic 2v2 action, but also Maniek and Goldy. Goldy really pulling his own weight in that game and, you know, surviving quite a bit longer than Maniek, playing really well in that overall. But that will be doing it. Thank you very much for watching, and this is Sybert signing out.